Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. In this video, we're going to be talking about flash photography and going over some of the pictures that I took from the Miami vlog. Before we get into this video, it would mean a lot to me if you hit the like button and subscribe down below. So if you guys saw the last video, then you know that a good friend of mine, Anastasia, and I decided to take a very spontaneous trip to Miami. The reason for that is because we planned to shoot here in New York City at 5 o'clock in the morning to get sunrise photos, but the weather was way too cold for her to be in a bikini for more than like 3 minutes. So upon setting up for the shoot, we decided, hey, screw it. It's way too cold here. Let's jump on a plane, go to Miami, and instead of taking sunrise photos, we'll take sunset photos. But if you want to see how the events of that day transpired, you're gonna have to go watch the vlog because I'm not gonna give you any more information in this video. This video is gonna be solely focused on flash photography and some of the images that were taken throughout that day. So like I said earlier, the goal for when we got to Miami was to shoot sunset photos. The reason we wanted to shoot at sunrise was because we wanted the water in the background. Since we're on the East Coast, when the sun's rising, the sun is going to be right there along the coast. But for sunset, it doesn't work the same way when you're also still on the East Coast, because when the sun goes down, it's going to be on the other side of the water. So the photos didn't come out exactly how I had pictured them, but nonetheless, they still came out really cool. And we're going to go over some of them now. So this is a screen recording of my Lightroom program. If you're not familiar with Lightroom, it's a program made by Adobe. It's called Adobe Photoshop Lightroom. And I have here, there's a feature that lets you pick out some of the photos that you want based on either a rating or a flag. So I gave all the pictures I want to use for this video a 3-star rating. So these are all the images that I have laid out that we're taking with the flash. You can see as I'm scrolling through them. And then I don't want to talk too much about it because I want to do a whole separate video talking about natural lighting photography. But this image that we're looking at right here is a natural lighting photography image. And you can kind of see on the bottom that the shadow is starting to creep up on her feet over here. And we actually had to take a few steps back in order to do more natural lighting photos. But the reason for this is because the hotel that we were staying at was actually right behind us. So because the water is behind her, that's the coastline, that's the east side, and the sun was setting in the west. So it was hiding behind the building. And we were kind of running out of time because we spent, not the whole day, but we spent a good amount of the day traveling there. So by the time we got there, we didn't really have that much time to do sunset photos on the beach, but these are how the photos came out. So this photo right here, we were actually really happy for and really hyped about when we took it. If you watch the vlog, you see that we actually get really excited because the first photos came out great. We're very happy with how the natural lighting looked. But then once we started implementing the flash, it started to look like a completely different thing. It almost started to look like a magazine photo shoot. And you can actually hear me say that in the vlog. So let's break down how I took this photo and what exactly I did. So when doing flash photography, you need to expose for the background. And then once you have your background exposure down, then you start implementing the power of the flash to let your subject in front of you to make it look how you want to look in contrast to the background. So how I set this up was I have a remote trigger for my flash that goes right onto the top of my camera. And I pretty much just turned it off, and I didn't put any power to the flash because when I have it plugged in, it automatically tries to expose and figure out how the image is gonna look. So I had turned that off. I got the exposure down for the background. And if I look at the settings here, I had ISO 200 and my shutter speed was at 1/2500th of a second, which is very fast. It makes sense because we were in daylight. I had a very fast shutter, and then I was zoomed in to 70 millimeters, and I had my aperture all the way wide open at 2.8. I was shooting on the 24-70 G Master Sony lens, and that's as wide as it goes. So I was at 70 millimeters, 2.8 aperture, 1/2500th of a second, and my ISO was at 200. So that's the exposure that I had for the background. And it doesn't say here in the metadata what the power was for the flash, but I pretty much, once I had these settings set for the background, I just adjusted the power of the flash until I got a nice enough exposure on her. And I was happy with how the image was looking in camera. I want to talk about this one little thing about these images that kind of irks me. What irks me about these photos is that on the bottom left of the image, you see a very harsh shadow. The reason for this is because I'm using straight flash power. It's open and it's directly on her, and I have nothing to diffuse it. That's because on the beach, I tried using my umbrella and it was so windy that it actually started to blow away. And even with my bag holding it down and her bag holding it down, it wasn't enough to prevent the wind from pulling the stand and lifting everything up. So I decided to just take the umbrella off, which I actually wound up breaking, by the way. So now I need to go get a new umbrella. But I wound up actually just taking the umbrella off and leaving the flash how it was, with the power just going straight on her. So the only thing that bothers me about these images is that, but overall I still am really happy with the images. And there's a saying that one of my favorite YouTubers likes to say, which is done is better than perfect. So I would have rather gotten these shots than sat and cried about the fact that I couldn't use my umbrella just to get rid of a little bit of a harsh shadow. So aside from that, I think these photos came out fantastic. And not to gas myself up, but I could probably see this on the cover of like some swimsuit magazine or something like that. Maybe one day, we'll see. So once I got the lighting and everything down for this one particular angle, I took a few shots of her in different poses because I wanted to have some diversity. I didn't just want to take 1 or 2 shots. So I had her kneeling down, I had her stand up and turn around on different sides. She picked her arm up, she turned around. We did a whole bunch of different angles while we were in that one lighting setting. And then we decided to change locations. Not exactly, we more so just kind of faced the other way. Because like I said, this was at sunset. So currently at the point in time, if you can kind of see in the background over here, you still kind of see the sun is peeking through a little bit through the buildings. That's like through the hotel. I mean, you don't see the buildings, but all this shadowy area here is because the sun is actually behind the buildings now. And me personally, with my creative style of photography, I'm a huge sucker for sun flares. So I didn't want to spend too much time taking pictures in this direction. So we got a bunch of them, we were happy with them, and then it was time to switch it up and get some with the sun behind her. And these are how those photos came out. So going on to the next one. So this is another natural lighting image that I'm showing you here. And I have no flash on her. This is just naturally how she looks. So the settings for this image here, my ISO was cranked up to 250. I was at f3.2, so I closed my aperture a little bit, and I was at 1/640th of a second. And I'm guessing that's probably because since the sun was behind her, it was probably casting a really deep shadow on her face. So if I had the shutter speed higher, it would have been darker. So if I drop the exposure down, this is probably how 1/2500th of a second would have looked. And not that this isn't workable, but I personally prefer to expose for the skin tones as opposed to exposing for the background, because when I bring it back up later, like I can probably bring the highlights down and get a little bit out of them, but they're still highlights, so they're going to be blown out no matter what. But if I was to keep the shutter speed what it was at, then it probably would have been a much noisier image when I brought the shadows up in post. And I didn't want that. I didn't really want a noisy image. I wanted something clean, so I lowered my shutter speed for this, or at least that's the logic I'm putting behind it. Because all of this happens in such an instant, I'm kind of just retracing my steps here, but I have a feeling that's why I lowered my shutter speed, because she was definitely too dark with the sun flare behind her. So this is how the image looked with the natural lighting, and I still think this is a great image. And I probably, if I drop the blacks a little bit, I can get a little bit more definition in her face, and she won't look as blown out, or, you know, kind of like a washed out image. But let's start looking at what happened once I started implementing the flash into this photo. So if I go over to the next picture, this is how the images started looking with the flash. Now you can see she's much brighter here, and that's because I kept all my settings the same. Yeah, so I'm still at f3.2, I'm still at ISO 250, and I still have 1/640th of a second shutter speed. And all I did was I just started implementing flash power. And if I turn the filters off, I'll probably see that it took a few takes to get it right. Yeah, so this one of her blinking, that was way too much power, and that's probably because I was facing the other way before. But once I started getting it down a little bit, this is what the images started to look like. So I'm really happy with how these came out too, because like I said, I'm a huge sucker for sun flares, and I'm not really one to do a lot of flash photography, but it is something that I do want to implement more. So looking at both of these photos, if I go back and forth to show you, you can clearly tell which one has the lighting on her and which one doesn't have the lighting on her. So this is the natural lighting, written up here, 9645. This is the natural lighting on her. And then you click over one and you can see that she's very well lit. And the details in her skin and her swimsuit are just so much clearer, because the flash is pretty much fighting the glare that comes from the sun. So the sun flares, they're leaving this beautiful like glowing effect in the background, and then the flash is making sure that her face isn't completely powered out by the sun flare, and it's lighting her so beautifully. And if you scroll through them a little bit, you kind of notice that I changed my angle a little bit, and that's because the sun was starting to really creep behind the building over here, which was the hotel that we were staying at. So we only took a couple photos in this section. It looks like my settings were the same constantly through. The only difference was I changed my focal length and my angles a little bit going all the way through this. And again, same thing. I had her standing up, I had her kneeling, I had her doing all different types of poses just to make sure that we got the shot. And then after this, she wanted to do another swimsuit. She had 3 swimsuits that she wanted to do. And I told her, I was like, look, it would be great if we could do them on the beach, but it was getting way too shady for us to continue doing it there. And the sun was like this close, literally this close to being fully off of the beach. Like it was gonna be behind the building so much that it would have cast just a huge shadow over the beach and it wouldn't have looked so good. So I suggested that since she had such a beautiful room upstairs on a balcony on the top floor of this hotel, that we go upstairs and shoot in the hotel. So that's gonna be the next photo set I show you, which was us on her balcony with the sunset behind her. So this is the next photo set, and it's at the point in the video where we went up to her hotel to shoot on her balcony. And this first image that we're looking at right here is an image of her with just natural lighting. There was no flash on this. It was lit for her. And you know, if you look, if I expose for her, you see her details, you can see her skin, you see her swimsuit, you see all of that, and it looks all right. It was starting to get dark because the sun was setting, but once I show you the contrast between these images and how this image looks compared to the next one, you're probably gonna be like, wow, this is the magic of flash photography right here. So let me turn this on right here. So this is how this image looks with no flash, natural lighting with the sun behind her. And this is how it looks once I actually took the picture with the flash. And this was the contrast to the background once I got my settings down. It is like night and day. Like, go back, look at this image, look at how the background looks, look at how she looks, and then look at this image and look at how vibrant she looks. Look at how separated she is from the background, and look how gorgeous the background looks. This is the power of flash photography. So I did the exact same thing I did for the other pictures. I set for the background, and then once I had my settings dialed in, which I'll tell you right now, I had my ISO at 80 because it was very, very bright. And with a lower ISO, you get less noise, which means you get a much sharper image. So I had my ISO at 80. I was at a 35mm because it was a very short balcony, so there really wasn't that much space for us there, so I couldn't zoom in really any tighter than that unless I wanted to do like a close-up shot. And I had my aperture at 2.8. Then I had my shutter speed, which I'm actually noticing now and I didn't realize before, is the same settings that I had on the last set at the beach, which was 1/640th of a second. And once again, once I had these settings down, it was just a matter of playing with the flash and getting the power right, because now we're also in a different location. And I actually did have my umbrella set up on this. So if you look on the side of her down here, her shadow isn't really that harsh. It looks kind of soft. That's because I was actually able to use the umbrella up here because it was stuck in the corner, the wind wasn't pushing it, and we were right there. So we were able to control it if if it started to fall or anything like that. So these are like, all of these pictures came out amazing and I'm so happy with them, and they all have like kind of their different style to it. So we took a bunch of photos in this setting and I'm gonna scroll through them so you can see them. So scrolling through again, I had her doing a bunch of different poses and I was snapping off. Once I had the flash settings down and I had the background settings down, it was just a matter of firing away and experimenting with different types of poses and stuff like that. We were a little limited on how far we could actually go because, like I said, I was pretty much pressed up against the glass. At one point I tried opening her door, her balcony door, but it kind of pushed open, so I was trying not to get it in the frame. So we caught the very last little bits of the sunset, and like I said, I'm very happy with how these images came out. This is the last photo I tried taking of her using the flash. I was curious to see how it would look if I faced her the other way and if I could possibly light it a little bit different. There was a little corner that I was able to go over to, but I'm not happy with how it looks because the lighting is just all off. I couldn't get a good angle because I probably would have needed to have the flash on the opposite side of her, which isn't possible because there was no opposite side of her because we were already at the edge of the balcony. And you can see here that the flash actually lit this little piece up that I really don't like. And the lighting was just off. I figured we'd experiment with it just to see how it would look. But that's pretty much it for all the flash photography photos that we took here. So that's pretty much gonna be it for this video. Let me guys know what you thought about this breakdown. And let me know if you have any questions regarding flash photography or if there's anything that I didn't really explain too well in this video. I got some feedback on episode 1, which was the Lamborghini behind the scenes video. And somebody was telling me that they loved the video, but they were a little unclear with some of the photo settings that I used and asked that I had explained them a little bit more. I hope that I was a little bit clearer in this video, but maybe I'll do a separate one talking about the basics of photography and then using some of those photos as well as the photos from this set as a reference. But if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. I'm more than happy to help out. And if you want to, feel free to DM me. My Instagram will be listed here somewhere. But that's gonna be it for today's video. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. It really helps and I greatly appreciate it. Thank you guys for watching and I will see you in the next one.